everywhere. We can feel a very good
Yeah.
wind. The air is very good, very pure, and there is no pollution. The birds are chirping now. The animals has come on the road. So everything is good. The nature has come up with the bright colors, we can say.
Absolutely. There's actually a good studies and a lot of technology coming addressing overpopulation, because this is an overpopulation
Yeah,
problem, but there's no boundaries. Everything from
yeah,
pollution to pandemics. Um, I think people are now starting to understand how what affects one side of the world and affects
yeah,
the other, because it's an overpopulation issue. How we
yeah,
address
yeah.
water quality, how we address food, how we address our environment. So these are the top issues. Or we should remind people, like, we should start finding because this is not going away. you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Last 50
We
years,
can
the
say
Delhi pollution is 65 air quality index. Last 50 years, there was no like such air quality index. Whatever the global population, if we are talking China, New York, and India, and everywhere, 30 to 50%, the pollution just decreased down as per the normal weather was there, atmosphere there, environment was there. So that's a good thing also, but the blessing in disguise, how we can discuss. But first, if life is saved, then we can discuss the other things and how the pollution is going.
absolutely. Let's always
no.
be mindful, put people over profit, always people over profit. And,
Yeah, yeah.
let's make a message to our enterprises, the corporation. No price gouging. We've seen a lot of that, and unfortunately, during these meetings, because we want to be, we're all in this together. So let's unify, let's unite, and let's collaborate.
And that is
Absolutely.
Maybe,
a
And
maybe
our
the
viewers would like to our viewers would like to know what's happening in Canada, and they were eager to listen from Sasha. And also, some of the viewers are asked, will he change the position of today's background, because he used to sit at some place and then he changed it? Is he at the same place, or is he moved at some other place?
Uh, Thank you. Okay, let me report that so far Canada is doing a pretty good job of containing the coronavirus, and some methods probably quite unpopular in Canada. For example, I know already three cases where one driver was stopped and fined $1,000. And now they also increased a penalty of $1,000 to any people in a public space who are not apart at least 6 feet or 2 meters. They have to be apart. Two people were also fined $1,000 each. So with the methods like this, it seems to me that they're quite persuasive, and people will definitely be mindful of that. Now, Scarlett, thanks to you, I've checked my mental stage as a senior. I played 5 games of chess and solved 3 puzzles. And it seems to me that I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. And I have a question to Dr. Sagu. Uh, you mentioned, I think it was yesterday, that certain medical professionals, they're all over the world. I think we're praising medical professionals who are on the front line. That goes without saying. However, what you've reported, and I've read somewhere else about that, so it's 100% true, that in US, certain nurses or even doctors were fired by their hospitals because they spoke and telling about their difficulties with the PPE to probably television stations or media, and as a result, they were fired. That's true story. On the other hand, my question would be this: how you expect people on the front line, doctors, nurses, to provide care if they, in fact, don't have PPE? So, are we telling them just go ahead and, of course, you have the highest possible risk to get coronavirus and die, because when medical profession get coronavirus, they're taking it in such doses that most of the times they're simply dying. So how realistic is for us to expect them to do their job without proper PPE?
Yeah, Sasha, it's a very good question. Basically, now what we have to do is we have to take care of our frontliners. There may be healthcare workers, there may be your drivers, there may be your grocery takers, there may be sweepers or anybody, right? So there should be enough number of the PPEs, and the guidelines has to be taught properly how to wear the PPEs and where to go during the COVID. Your question is, when we don't have a PPE, then how we should go, how we should treat the patient? First of all, I would say no. Nobody should be allowed to examine a COVID patient without a PPE. It's like you are asking somebody to enter into the fire. There is a big fire. I'm going to enter without taking any safety precautions. Suppose it's a very peripheral region. You don't have any PPE, anything. What you can do? You can have a visor. You can have a screen visor. You have to protect your eyes. You have to protect your nose. You have to protect your mouth, and you have to protect your hands. You can wear gown, double gown you can wear, but that has to be properly sealed. You need to put double gloves. You have to put a film over your visor, because we need to have a film or a protector which should be fluid repellent. The fluid should not be adhered to your goggles. If I am wearing this type of the goggles, they are not closed. It should be closed. It should be closed, and there should be a film over this so that your glasses will not have adherence to the fluid which has been given by your patient. So you can have this much of the precautions, and you should know which should be the screen area, which should be triage area, which should be the inpatient area. So there are different guidelines for all the different areas, but this is the minimum requirement you should have. But again, I would say without a PPE, I would not like to allow any healthcare worker to examine a COVID patient.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sagos. There is one thing when you mentioned before things that you have to do in order to protect yourself. I think you were omitted. Maybe I'm wrong, but I saw that you were omitted the importance of hydration and drinking. And by the way, yesterday I've checked that my supply of beer was done and over. So I bought, believe it or not, Corona beer. Maybe that will save us all. Corona beer.
So I won't say.
Very popular.
I won't say.
I don't drink, but I came to know a very popular beer.
Sasha has Corona.
Beer. It's a Belgian beer by the name of Leffe. This is very, very good. Believe it or not, much better than Corona. So I have both now.
So again, I would say that there should not be any dehydration. You should be taking enough quantity of the liquid, and preferably you should have a hot liquid, hot beverages, and this can again boost up your immunity. So I think we will cover when we will be covering the immunity. So you have to prevent the dehydration. You have to take enough quantity of the liquid.
There is something else.
Corona fights Corona.
Something wanted to mention also. Previously, we discussed a concept of making stay home as 100% in all states policy in the United States. But you know what? I've heard analysis that it is absolutely unclear whether a president has authority to declare stay at home in all states. So he's left it up to the governors to declare it. So a lot of governors did do that, but some of them didn't. And it's a question then, whose authority is higher, the presidents or governors?
Governors. governors, I would say they are more intelligent. Governors are more intelligent.
Well, it's very different, of course, from places like Singapore, where the Prime Minister says everyone stays home. That's it. So there's no question of authority in this situation, and seems to me they were successful to contain it. In the United States,
You
it's
know,
a question of who has the right. How does it solve?
no, Sasha, this is not the time to see who have a right or who don't have a right. If your president is not ready to listen anybody, then I think the person who is doing the good work, he has to be appreciated. So here I would like to appreciate
Right.
governors of New York, governors of New Jersey, everybody. In India, our Prime Minister Modi has taken the right decision, and I would appreciate our Prime Minister. In Canada,
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau has taken the decision. I think I would appreciate Justin Trudeau. In Singapore, the Prime Minister has taken the authority. That person has to be appreciated who is doing the good work in favor of the humanity. I don't think the president is doing the right thing. Governors are doing the right thing.
To who it may concern, to who it may concern, it is doing for humanity. That's good. That should be appreciated. You're
You
right.
see, don't forget that United States is a country of law. And if president would do something what is unlawful, then he will jeopardize himself. However, what governors, what powers they have, is also a question. What their extent of being lawful. So I think if president would declare stay home 100% policy in all states of United States,
It has to be there.
in this, yeah, I think he could have done it by far. And so then, whoever governors disagree with that, they would have to challenge and maybe go through courts up to Supreme Court or so, which is unrealistic at this time, as these days. So basically, nobody in his right mind would would challenge president if he would declare it. What do you think?
Sasha, there is a one question for you.
Yes,
When
please.
the once the Olympic has been postponed, the FIFA World Cup, which is going to be organized by India in November, under 17 FIFA World Cup, has been postponed. So, is this the time to announce that the election, which are happening after 3 months, would not be postponed? Or it is the time to declare that everybody should stay at home?
I agree with that, and but you see, it's not even at this point knowing success of uh, Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea. It's not even a question. It's been proven beyond any reasonable doubts that by
Yeah.
staying home, you actually contain in not 100%, but probably closely. Because how you can get that if you're staying at home, you don't see anybody, you're not contacting anybody, or if you wanna go and drive, you will be stopped and charged $1,000, so you're not going to do even that. So, what are your chances to get coronavirus? Very, very minimal. So, why would anybody argue this this notion? Really, I really don't understand that.
That's a good point. And something to consider on this level is, okay, we stay at home and we self-contain, but how do we self-treat if for whatever reason we did become sick? And then there are people like myself who require monthly treatments. Now we're not able to go to the facilities for two reasons. One, for fear of catching something, or from fear of being sick and sharing this, because we don't know we're infected until after it's too late. Again, like Nick said, we need to become COVID-19 certified, right? We all need, but that requires test kits. We need to get those test kits out there. We know that test kits exist. Why aren't we delivering them? What's the holdup? Does anyone have an answer to that? I know that the test kits exist. What's the holdup? Anyone? Anyone have a answer?
Sorry,
Because
can you repeat the question? Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
same
you
here.
please repeat the question?
That's a good question to address on each country,
I
because
think,
every
Kim,
country
the
has
test
their
kits are not spreading the way the virus is spreading because we are not united. And the virus is playing a role, and the virus is united because it's spreading the community one by one, and we are not still united and trying to fight it out. Because we have enough test kits at some countries, at some places, but we are not supplying because of the lack of imagination or what else, because no one wants to talk. There's a lot of ego. Governments have ego talking to
Yeah.
No,
president,
this,
someone else, and
this
people are
is
not
no,
a
talking
no.
and
If
united,
if the,
unitedly, because this is the problem of the world.
this is
Right.
actually a supply
the
chain issue.
taste, no, price is okay, but taste kid issue is a everywhere problem in country, even in USA. Now every country is facing for the taste kit, other medical devices just to taste the corona. And whatever Kim has raised the question, just in India, as I told you earlier, 10 lakhs test kit just required, and Indian Council of Medical Research has been ordered, and tomorrow Air India plane is going to reach at China to collect their test kit from there. So, yeah, there is not an ego issue, and this is a matter of availability. Who is holding the market worldwide? We have to see accordingly. This time, we have to facilitate just to support our patients who are suffering and who are affected, infected from the corona. That is the main question. What we are discussing here and trying to discuss and trying to just coming in conclusion, what is the main problem? And that there is issue just to how to control. First and prime duty for the global how to break the chain of this COVID-19. That is important. On in between, what is the role of China and role of WHO is not also appreciated, should not be appreciated, but because we have to globally, unitedly fight the COVID-19, that is top priority. That should be top priority for all of us, for all the country. What we all country, including India, just trying to save from that the single enemy of the world, Corona, COVID-19. That is important.
So, in terms of why aren't enough uh, uh, enough test kits being allocated to the appropriate, that this is actually a global supply issue, meaning there's certain areas are being allocated, but certain areas are not. And a lot of different countries are addressing it differently. Here in the United States, yes, I do agree with Kimberly. There, we do have the test kits, but again, this is a more of a logistic and in terms of supply, how which city should have certain amount of test kits and which doesn't. And what's happening is that they're starting now to prioritize major cities, major metropolises to get test kits and others. Just because the demands are not. But again, look into your country, ask those questions. Who's addressing um, the supply chain, and that would be your answer.
But how do
No,
they
we,
contact?
I agree. Kim.
No, I'm just wondering, how do they find that? Because it's not something that you just globally find anywhere. CDC supposedly has a means that you can go online with them and say, I think I have it. And supposedly they have a means to give you who to contact. But now those means are very few and far between because we've got local facilities. Once it seems like one person gets sick, that whole community is sick. And again, we go back to it was a ghost that we didn't know these people were infected until it was too late. Patient 31 in South Korea is a huge example of how contaminated a whole community can become. And just like that, before you even know you have it. So I think finding the resources and being able to post them where it's easy for people to reach would be nice. I don't see any out there. Does any Scarlett? Do you have an answer for that?
Well, I can only address here United States. I don't know how other countries deal with the supply chain. I'm assuming you have to really do your due diligence and research and ask those questions, that specific question, because that's the questions that the audience would love to hear from your country and to be able to facilitate those. But here in the United States, to figure out which areas are being allocated. There's actually GIS data out there and that's available for the public, and I'm gonna put that in the link for the viewers to understand where exactly the supply chain for these test kits are being allocated. Because unfortunately, not everybody is not being distributed equally. Is what I'm trying to say. Not everybody's going to get certain amounts. They're right now they're prioritizing. So right now here in the United States, our supply chain is heading more towards New York, California, Washington, and then right now, only recently, within last week, Miami. But just to give you an idea of what's happening.
I think 17 states affected in USA. 17 states.
I'm sorry?
I think in USA, 17 states have been critically affected, I think, out of the 50.
It doesn't mean that the supply chain is going to all 17 states. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But the problem is they have no idea where to distribute the supply chain to anymore. I think there's a huge big confusion in who has what and how do we get it to the right resources. And I think we just need to focus in on that. And again, data would help us control what's going on. And I don't think anyone obtaining the right data right now. Scarlett, do you have any word on that?
I actually do have data. I don't have it with me, but I will definitely going to share it with the board. But I strongly suggest doing due diligence, looking at each country in terms of the supply chain and ask that question, because from my perspective, I don't know how every country is being handled.
Yeah, we need to do that. Go ahead.
Scott, one question for you. Just a few minutes ago, discussing the situation in Latin America about what to do with the forests and other matters. And about a month ago, I was on a cruise ship in Latin America, and I enjoyed the trip tremendously. And one question what I wanted to find, and I'm curious how you would answer. Centuries ago, Latin America was divided into two spheres of influence. One is Brazil, Portuguese, and all the rest Spanish. Now, what's happened that Brazil remained as one country, and all other countries in the Spanish sphere of influence, they were divided into several countries like Bolivia, Ecuador, and Argentina, and so on and on. Peru, I can't even name all of them. There are too many. Does that suggest, in your opinion, that Portuguese were better managers than Spaniards?
So in this case, it comes down to each country's protocol. So every country has their own plan and how they implement it. And countries that did the due diligence and actually submit a follow up with the CDC protocol or were more of an imitation. Again, when you're dealing with pandemic, early on, immediacy, reaction to the public, it was the key. So in, like, for instance, in countries like Brazil, they had a different type of protocol. They were able to execute it, but it doesn't mean they weren't affected. It's, definitely, this is something that it did affect. Some countries were better at handling it. Partially has to do with, I hate to say it, that the fact that countries who have socialized medicine are a bit more advantageous, because here in the United States, we don't have socialized medicine, meaning if you don't have health insurance, you would have to spend a lot of money. So unfortunately, that caused a domino effect. So in socialized countries that does have a universal healthcare system, they were able to mitigate the amount of people who were being affected because of early detection. But you can see how this could cause a domino effect. So hopefully that answered your question.
My question was actually not to do with necessarily coronavirus, what's happening right now. My question was more probably historical question, that Brazil remained one country and the Spanish territory was divided into several different countries. My question was, do you think that in this case, Portuguese were more effective managers than Spaniards?
Were Portuguese more effective managers? I honestly don't know the answer to that question. So, this, for instance, the Spanish flu, isn't it? It was the last major pandemic that happened in 1918 because it was global. And how did they address it? So, what a lot of people don't remember from the historical accuracy during that time is that because there was a war happening, areas in the United States were more affected than in places like Spain and Portuguese. So it's interesting because we often forget and look in our history as to how do you address pandemic. Just look what happened back in 1918 with the Spanish flu, and look how countries how to exactly to your point. Portuguese and Spain, how they were able to address different issues, can definitely give us a history lesson as like what to do at this point. We're more effective. I mean, that is every country is biased, I would say. So they will both have good arguments.
Actually, when I was in Latin America recently, I asked that question several people there. No one could come up with answer except one. He was a history professor. So he answered that question. So finally, I'm satisfied that I know the right answer.
Yes, absolutely. That is basically the history, and for it's the common denominator. Those who are informed, and actually do the due diligence of knowing the history, are better adapted to these type of situations.
Scarlett, thank you very, very much for your input.
Yeah, thank you so much.
He's doing this now. Good evening, doctor. How are you doing?
Yeah, good
Namaste.
evening. Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much for joining us again. I always love having you on our show. You fulfill a lot of what our need is in the medical world. So please share with us how are things going for you. And also, I want to introduce you to Scarlett. She is like this brilliant science mind. Scarlett, Dr. Ami.
Hello, Swarna.
Hello, welcome.
So share with us what's going on.
So, as far as India is concerned, the lockdown is very strict. And as you know, we are testing very, very little. So, we actually don't know what the picture is. But yes, we don't have very bad news coming from the hospitals, from the primary centers. We don't have patients queued up. So that is a little satisfying. But yes, we are just keeping our fingers crossed. We don't think we are blessed in any different way than any other country. I think it's just taking us some time to reach there. The lockdown is working well. Numbers are coming up. Today we have added around 560 plus numbers, but those numbers are not a reflection of the real picture because we don't have many test kits. We have limited test centers and we have very limited test kits. Our labs are not that well equipped, both from the perspective of the test kits as well as the personnel. People are working in 12-hour shifts there. My friends are working in 12-hour shifts. A population of say 2 crore has 2 labs as of today also, and they have limitation to how many tests they can do per day. So the only good thing is that we don't have those queues of people coughing and coming up with bad pneumonias lined up even at the primary healthcare level. So that is the only silver lining that we see till now. But just keeping our fingers crossed.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think we just need to keep with the practices that we're learning today and keep consistent with that so that we can continue to see the numbers drop, get that flat line that we're all looking for. The term flat line has become very important in this pandemic to not just to get there, but to maintain and hopefully drop. We have seen some countries where they have been very successful in slowing down with this. I had hoped that we could have spoke with some of them. I think Singapore dropped off, but we spoke with Hong Kong. They have felt very confident about maintaining some control because they took extreme measures. But we're hearing also globally that they're having to extend those shutdowns. Like I think it was Singapore had shut down for 30 days. Now they're asking for another 30 days. If you watch the movie 93 Days, you're going to understand that's a true story about a pandemic they were able to shut down before it became widespread in 23 million, with 23 million people. They took extreme measures and nobody felt the impact. But 90 days to me sounds like a true number to gain control of this. Not 21 days, not 30, but a whole season. We almost need a whole season to be able to gain control of this because we didn't see it for 14 days in a person. Then there's that test that takes 10 days. Now we've got rapid tests, but they're not everywhere. Those tests aren't everywhere. So that's 24 days before you really know that somebody had it. So how are we ever to expect to even gain control in 21 days? I don't understand that, especially when I know I'm talking to friends today. They're still going to work, like hundreds of them, to the same facility. I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. And they're told the only thing that they have changed is they're all supposed to wash their hands more throughout the day. But none of these people know what other people are doing when they go home. So I think, the consistency of shutting down, not getting bored, realizing the fact that this is going to be more than 30 days. Am I somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but is there a consensus on this right now that we believe that it's more than 30 days?
I want to talk about what happened in China. So China actually tried to reopen, temporarily relieve their borders and to get people back into work because obviously they're getting infected. But unfortunately they had a relapse, so they had to do another quarantine. This is the problem. We're just not there yet. This is more of a long-term solution in terms of keeping people quarantined. We just have to learn to adapt. Again, don't put people over profit. And look at China. Tried to reopen, and they just had a relapse. And because people are getting anxiety because they've been confined, they want to go back to work, and there's a lot of job loss. So it's a very scary time for a lot of people. So I think that's where we need to address how you address long-term solution as opposed and keep people in quarantine until the wave passes. Because obviously what we've seen in the data, what happened in China, it's not working. They reopen, they had a flare, and now they have to reclose. And this is going to be cyclical. So let's not give the wrong impression to other countries. Go ahead. How do you want to address that?
I would like to share a story what Sadhu said with us yesterday. to different sources that in China, the second phase started, which is like a disinfection. I think Dr. Amandeep must have been more aware about it. And what's happening is that those patients have different symptoms we used to see in COVID-19. So according to Dr. Sabgu and according to the team 2.0, where they have different symptoms, and that is what the concern is, and that's why China started doing what you are mentioning, and that's why doing, because we are still talking about COVID-19 and we are still talking about the vaccinations and how we will come over the situation. But now I think the 2.0, what is which is not aware about it, it's just news that something is going on. That is more scary, and then I think we should, and that's why I was telling that we are not, and there is some gap which we have to fill it out. It's not about the ventilators and it's not about the mask. It's about the communication, which is we are lacking at some point of time. That's why we have a lot of stuff available at some places, and now those stuffs are. I'm talking about New York, so they have a lot of ventilators which they never used it. It's not okay. So my question is, we are not utilizing it, and that's why we are struggling. What happened in India? We have converted our trains into quarantine centers.
Yeah,
Are carrying all those people, and we are trying to do our best, and we are discussing the best practices around India. That is what we are saying, that we have to discuss and do the best practice and share the best practice around the world. Then only we can save this world. And right now, only 9 countries are basically save us from corona, because they don't have any coronavirus, and those are, according to the global economy, those are the third grade countries. Most of them are in the Africa. But I
top
believe
is not
that when
Korea.
you were talking,
Top is North Korea, number 1.
yeah. So basically, when we talk about that, we are economic power and we are developed countries and developing countries. Right now, all the countries are on the same boat. We are dealing with the same problem, and I think countries with limited